let's shift gears and talk about Notre Dame at Texas A&M. The offensive line is set with Knapp and Pendleton. How do you think those two guys entering the starting lineup possibly changed the way Notre Dame thinks about offense against A&M, in particular early in the ball game?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question, and I just hope that Notre Dame doesn't approach it like they did Ohio State 2022, and that had nothing to do with the offensive line. You felt really sound and solid in those guys, but it had to do with offensive personnel, specifically quarterback Tyler Buchner making his first career start. And you kind of sheltered him and said, hey, we're going to adjust our game plan. Marcus Freeman explicitly said this going into the game, which I thought was an interesting move. But he said, yeah, we're probably not going to put all of our chips on the table and do some things that we would like to do eventually this season, because we don't know if he can do that at Ohio State. So now you look at this and say, do we know that Anthony Knapp can block Nick Scorton and these other guys that Texas A&M has? I'm not sure. I think because you have a veteran quarterback, you're able to do you're kind of able to do what you didn't do against Ohio State a couple seasons ago and say, hey, let's roll this guy out. Let's do the zone read game. Anything that gets Riley Leonard a little bit more involved with his legs, or maybe some quicker passes. We trust him at this point, being a senior quarterback, to make those accurately. I think you feel a little bit better because of that. But at the end of the day, I think Marcus Freeman learned a lesson from that Ohio State game and said, hey, we're going to have to play our style of game no matter what that is, no matter where it is, who it's against. These are the guys that we think are the best 11 for us to go out and win a football game. Two of them, like you said, Knapp and Pendleton, have never started a game at this level. And Emil Wagner, for that point, has never started a game at this level either. So that's an interesting point as well. But I think the confidence is there to just say, hey, let's let it go. Let's let it rip. And that comes from Riley Leonard, Darren, and it also comes from Mike Denbrock. I don't think Mike Denbrock's going to pull any punches in this game. He says, hey, let's run what we want to run, regardless of the guys up front who are blocking.
You mentioned Riley Leonard. I think back to the offseason, you went back and watched all of his snaps at Duke and put together some great features at blueandgold.com. Now he's ready for his first start as Notre Dame's starting quarterback. Playing at Duke is one thing. Playing at Notre Dame is something else. Do you have any worries about Riley Leonard being ready for this particular moment?
A little bit, and here's why. And I asked Marcus Freeman about this, and he kind of gave a stock answer, but he did say, hey, we have all the confidence in the world in Riley Leonard, and you can feel that. You could say, okay, he's not just saying that. That's actually what this locker room, this coaching staff, they all believe that. But here's the thing that worries me, Darren. Like you said, I did go back and watch all 21 of those starts that Riley Leonard had at Duke, and I'm trying to, off the top of my head right now, because it's been a few months since we did that, I'm trying to remember a game of this magnitude, quite frankly. And it might be about a year ago on this very same weekend, Labor Day weekend, when Duke hosted Clemson, and everybody thought that Clemson, was going to return to being what Clemson has been, and that ended up not being the case. But hey, that's still a Clemson team that beat Notre Dame. I will remind people of that. Anyway, going back to that weekend, it was huge. And everyone at Duke felt it, and Clemson coming in, Dabo Swinney, all of the lore of that program, and Riley Leonard was the star of that show. So that makes you feel good that he can rise up to a moment. But Darren, I'm having trouble remembering any other moments like that in Riley Leonard's career. I mean, played Kansas a couple times in front of 20,000 people, probably. Northwestern was a home and home on the schedule, I believe. It's not Texas A&M week 1 college game day on the road in front of 100,000. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you do have a little bit of pause for how he's going to come out and play in this game, I think that is very within reason and probably pretty valid.
I felt all offseason this is going to be a more low-scoring game, maybe a 24-20 type ball game. I feel like the Notre Dame defense, Tyler, is going to be ready for the challenge. And with all the question marks along the Irish offensive line, I feel like the Texas A&M offensive line might have some weaknesses, and that plays into the hands of that Fighting Irish front.
Yeah, for sure. When you talk about that part of the matchup, all you have to talk about is what Notre Dame has. And yeah, Texas A&M, I think they are going through some things on the offensive line right now, just like Notre Dame is trying to figure some things out, basically. I mean, and that's what Marcus Freeman said earlier today as well, was, hey, we don't really know what we got, or they don't know what they got until we actually go out there and see this thing unfold. So there definitely is a lot of that with the Notre Dame, or with the Texas A&M offensive line. But with the Notre Dame defensive line, you know exactly what you got. And it's 4 graduate student defensive linemen, 2 in the middle who probably make up I mean, for my money, a top 5 pair, defensive tackle pair in the country in Howard Cross and Riley Mills. I think RJ Oben is basically a Javonte Jean-Baptiste clone, and that is exactly what you want if you're Notre Dame, because Baptiste came in from Ohio State and was perfect. I mean, led the team in sacks. I think was top 5 in total tackles, played the run well, rushed the passer well. If you get that out of RJ Oben, then that's exactly what you want if you're Notre Dame. That's why you went to the portal to get him. And then at Viper, I really think Boubacar Traore is coming, and Jordan Botelho. If Jordan Botelho has the best year of his career, which is definitely on the table because he's been a little underwhelming at times, then pair that with maybe what you might get in a reserve in Boubacar Traore rushing the passer. Darren, we're talking 4 across the defensive line that Notre Dame would like to go up against anybody, especially a Texas A&M offensive line that may be struggling to figure some things out. So, yeah, I mean, if you think that Texas A&M is just going to walk all over Notre Dame's offensive line, then the Texas A&M offensive line has something coming its way as well, for sure.
Any thoughts, Tyler, on the skill from the Texas A&M offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think Connor Wegman, it starts there. Probably, I mean, you saw DJ Uiagalelei in Florida State, Georgia Tech in week 0. That's probably the most notable name on Notre Dame's schedule in terms of quarterback talent, but I think Connor Wegman might be Notre Dame or the best quarterback that Notre Dame is going to face all season. And then when you look at the guys that are around him, I mean, Darren, it's an SEC program. You're going to have SEC capable wide receivers, and it's not like you're facing an LSU type team where they have all kinds of talent out there, but they have enough talent. And the running back position, I think they went through a big injury. So, but it's kind of like you're reloading at when you're playing a team like Texas A&M when it comes to who you're facing in the backfield. So there could be a guy who Notre Dame fans, the casual fan, has never even heard this guy's name, and he could go off for 150. And like I don't think anybody thought Phil Maffa of Clemson was going to run for however many yards he did against Notre Dame last year. And then, of course, the kid from Louisville as well kind of went off and won that game. So what I'm trying to say is Texas A&M has the capabilities to come up and get you, because there's players on this team and at this program who are just dying, honestly, to go out and have that type of game against Notre Dame. But like I said, it starts with Connor Wegman. And I mean, I know he's dealt with the injuries, but last season, I think he still had an 18-5 touchdown interception ratio. So he can be prolific and he can take care of the ball. And I think, like you said, in a game that might be low scoring, take care of that football. If he does that in front of his home fans, you're talking about a Texas A&M offense that can do a little bit of damage.
Finally, Tyler, I want to end with special teams. And about 11, 12 years ago, those of us on the Notre Dame beat at that time, we like to call the punt return unit for Notre Dame, it was Fair Catch U, because they never tried to return the football. John Goodman, ball in the air, fair catch. Things have changed. You have dynamic playmakers, Tyler, not only on punt returns, but also on kick returns. I know you have some new parts, punter and place kicker, but it sure seems like on paper that special teams is going to be a plus for Notre Dame this year.
Yeah, the punter, you mentioned the punting game. The punter is 6'6" and 220 pounds, so maybe we'll see something special with him. Marcus Freeman in his press conference said probably no trick plays because Mike Elko's defense is so sound. But if you remember in the Duke game last year, Jeremiah Love, the fake punt, I think went for about 30 or so yards and sent up Notre Dame's first touchdown. And boy, they didn't score very many touchdowns after that, only 2 in the rest of the game. So that was a huge moment in that game. So maybe something with James Rendell. In this game, maybe not, but later on in the season, I think you have something there. You definitely have something in Jaden Harrison, who's coming in from Marshall, All-American kick returner. I mean, that's a guy that can just change a game on a dime. He was one of 5 players in the FBS last year to have multiple kick return touchdowns, one of only 2 players to average 30 or more yards per kick return. So he's dynamic for sure. You're not seeing him in the punt return game, which is interesting, though. He's more of a kick returner. So it's going to be between Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison in terms of the punt return game. I'm not sure if they have what it takes to kind of change what you said at Fair Catch U or whatever, but you like to think that they do. I mean, I am very high on Jordan Faison. I know a lot of other people are very high on Jaden Greathouse. If you're choosing between those 2 guys with the football in their hands, you're probably in a pretty good spot. And then you look at the field goal unit. You're talking about a kicker who at South Carolina and Mitch Jeter made 92% of his kicks in the last 2 seasons and is a perfect 20 of 20 from inside of 50 yards. If you'll take that if you're Notre Dame. If you can get inside of 50 yards and say, hey, we at least have 3 here, that's the spot that you probably weren't at with Spencer Schrader last year, Blake Grupe the year before that, or even Jonathan Dorr for 2 or 3 years, whatever it was before those 2 guys. So in the last handful of seasons, you probably have the most accurate kicker that Notre Dame has ever rostered, and that makes you feel good as well. So across the board, man, like you said, there's special teams names that have Notre Dame fans very excited.
Does Notre Dame win, and do you have a record prediction for the Irish?
Oh my gosh, everyone's gonna hate me. They've watched these videos, and now I'm gonna have to put this prediction out there. I actually have Notre Dame losing this game, and it goes back to Marcus Freeman being 5-4 on the road in his 2-year tenure. And I mentioned that Duke game a couple of times now. Easily could be 4-5. I mean, they were staring a loss straight in the face there. So you got to kind of prove it to me that you can go on the road if you're Notre Dame early in the Marcus Freeman era and go win a game like this. If you look at the Mike Elko, Riley Leonard thing, I think if anything, it's more advantageous for a head coach to know a lot about a quarterback than it is for a quarterback to know about the opposing head coach, because Elko's had 9 months to scheme specifically against Leonard and against Notre Dame. And I think that's going to go Texas A&M's favor. And like you said, if it's a low scoring game, you kind of like what Elko's going to be able to do there. But I do have Notre Dame winning 10 games in a row after that, Darren. So you lose this one, you're going to end up beating Louisville and Georgia Tech and Florida State. And all of a sudden you're sitting there at the end of the season, hey, 10-1, we're on the precipice of the college football playoff. But I have USC sneaking up and beating Notre Dame in the season finale. And that would be a 10-2 record. And that would be very nervy in South Bend on Selection Sunday or Monday, whenever they do that now, Darren. Just thinking about if Notre Dame's going to get in the college football playoff. I tend to think 10-2 will still get it done, but Texas A&M has to be a good team. You have to lose to 2 good teams, Darren. If you're going to lose 2 games, if you're Notre Dame and make the CFP, A&M's got to be good, and USC has to be good as well. So we'll see if that happens. It's a long time between now and then, but I do unfortunately have the Irish dropping this season opener on the road.
All right. How can people subscribe to blueandgold.com this week?
You can actually get 50% off an annual subscription for an average value of $4.99 a month. So less than $5 a month. It's our kickoff sale, kickoff special, promo code kickoff24. If you go to blueandgold.com and you find the sign up link there, you can also go to BGI News on Twitter, and we are tweeting that out all day, the sign up link. And then, like I said, promo code kickoff24, and you will get 50% off an annual subscription. It's our best deal that we run. We haven't run something like this in quite a while, so I would definitely take advantage, especially with it being on the cusp of the season. And you're going to want to be at blueandgold.com all season long for the best content on Fighting Irish football.